Iron body martial arts, the idea of hitting your body or, training your body in a way that it can defeat or defend against heavy blows, and that it seems almost supernatural. It's not claiming to be supernatural, it's not fully trying to be supernatural, but the idea is that you can do more than most people because you've trained your body to, be able to be smashed into by other things. Now, did it exist in real life? We don't know. Did it exist? What do you think? In this video, I want you to tell me if you think it existed, and if so, what documentation does it actually come from? Now, my name is Anthony Cummins, and I am the author of Zen and the Samurai Sword. And you get yourself a copy, and we're watching Nick do his swordsmanship just to keep you entertained, and we'll go through the debate. Now, Iron body martial arts is often mainly done from a Chinese perspective. You very rarely see it in Japan. Now, you might all scream, karate, they strike this and they strike that, but karate is actually not Japanese, and it wasn't Japanese until the 1920s. So the idea that there is an ancient martial arts where you punch things or hit yourself to the point where your body then, the bones slightly fracture and reset, which is the common martial arts myth. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. You tell me. But we all know these myths go around the martial arts scene, and it's like, you hit your body a little bit so it's painful and the bone cracks and it resets harder. Is that even scientifically possible? I don't know. I'm here to ask you guys. So what my main issue with this is about Japan. Now, we see people like Kawakami Sensei doing body conditioning, but the problem with that is it's from around the year 2000, the year 1980 to 2000, and Bruce Lee has well been out there. And we've had a lot of Chinese kung fu, Shaolin martial arts stuff, all, popular. What we're looking for is something from the 1800s in Japan that talks about body conditioning to a point where you can create a harder body than what most people will, have, and that with this harder body, you can withstand hard blows because of your training. I have not found it. I have not looked for it. I am not looking for it, but it does keep popping up, this idea in my head that we talk about. This still floats around the martial arts community. Now, I've lost contact with a man called Les Con. Les Con was, or is, a guy who deals, and by the way, Les, if you're listening, do email me, deals heavily with Chinese kung fu, Chinese martial arts. But the question becomes, did it exist in the ancient documents? Is there any evidence anywhere that the Chinese were doing this sort of fighting? I'm sure it might be really easy to find. I'm not saying it's not, but this brings me back to Japan. And what is scary about Japan, and realistically China, is that it's a sword fight. The only real reason you would have hardened body techniques is if you are doing 100% unarmed combat. But this comes to a bit of a problem. When you do unarmed combat of any kind, when you do martial arts of any kind, whether it's Chinese, Japanese, and you go back before the 1950s, it almost invariably talks about weapons. Any early karate books, any early kung fu books, there's always, you use this sai, use this knife, there's this kata with this blade, there's these nunchuckers, there's the threefold staff. There's never a kung fu book document that doesn't have weapons in it. And no matter how much you train your body, no matter how much, a sword will cut through it. There is no way you can train your body to stop a sword or a guillotine cutting your head off. So imagine you could just train your neck to be iron body neck, and then somebody tries to execute it in France in the 1700s, 1800s, and you say, ha-ha, chink, and it comes off. Never going to happen. So you see the size of the swords that Nick is using here. Them things are going to cut you clean in half, okay? So how is it possible that an ancient warrior with access to swords in a world where swords and knives are the absolute, must, would you bother spending hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of hours training your body to do something that doesn't work against a weapon in a society where it's weapons based? So then you would say, oh, well, what about it? Weapons are restricted? We have documentation that only samurai carried swords. Well, that's not true either. Basically, before a certain date in the late 1500s, anyone could carry a sword. Anyone could carry two swords in Japan. It was only after that the idea of carrying two swords, not one, two, is banned, meaning you can carry another sword, usually for self-protection on highways and byways. If you were part of a, like the Yamabushi, you could carry a sword. So swords were restricted at certain points, but you could carry daggers. Now, there's a lot of work to do with this, and I am trying to talk to Scott from Sengoku Studies about this, is what is the actual regulations. So, for example, when we dealt with, I've dealt with translations of scrolls from the Oniwa band, the secret police, the Tokugawa secret police. And they say that they disguise themselves as postmen and travellers and things like that. And they would disguise themselves and put their dagger, their travelling dagger, in a certain position to make it look like they didn't know how to fight. Meaning that travelling daggers were quite acceptable to walk around with. Meaning that most people could probably use a dagger for self-defence on the open highways. Again, I have not solved this situation yet. But there does seem enough doubt that it wasn't a case of you can't carry a sword, a dagger, a knife, a machete type thing. You probably could. But you couldn't wear two swords unless you're of the samurai class, or a long sword, or a sword over a certain length. It is one of those things I have yet to really get into. But there is clearly enough, that I have enough knowledge to say that there are certain people on the street who are not samurai that are using swords. And even if not, so that would mean then that only non-samurai were using fist hardening techniques, iron hand, iron palm, iron lung, whatever you want to call it. They basically it wouldn't be samurai, because a samurai has two blades and there's absolutely no point. So if somebody who's into unarmed combat comes against him, you just, sword versus fist, sword every time. I know we have Muto, but that is considered one of the highest things in the world, and in the martial arts skill is to get somebody's sword off them. So why don't you just hit them with a sword if you're allowed to carry one? It doesn't make any sense. So at the absolute most, you would literally only have a highly trained farmer who for some reason has time to do body conditioning, when we know that military training, and I bet that martial training, declined for those who could not afford it in Japan. So let's look at the Iga and Koken Ninja. The Iga and Koken Ninja were in Iga and Koken, and that land got took over by Nobunaga. And Nobunaga took away their fiefs, if you like, and they had to farm. And they then said, we have no time. Basically, they have to do ninjutsu in the afternoon and farming in the morning. And bit by bit, they crumbled and collapsed because there was no need for it. So let's look at this logically. For somebody to be ultimately trained in Iron Body, they would have to train hours a day, and they would have to be training in martial arts for the purpose of what? They are not hired by the military. So they're not hired. If they were hired by the military, they would be samurai or ashigaru, and they would be allowed to wear a sword. So you need somebody so for it to be reasonable that Iron Body martial arts were there, you'd have to have somebody who wanted to learn that, but it wasn't their job, nor did they use it as their job. They just wanted to learn it. I'm not saying that's not possible. It might be. We've all got our interests and hobbies, but it seems a bit redundant that in a world where swords are the main weapon and you see them on the street, especially in the Sengoku period, you would never do it. So it'd have to be sometime between the year 1600 and the year 1868 that there was an expert in Iron Body. And it doesn't work against swords, so he could only fight someone who hasn't got a sword. It doesn't work against daggers, so he'd have to fight someone who's prohibited from, using a dagger. So you're talking about him beating up really low-class vagabonds who have got, no rights in the world, or criminals who've got swords who'd kill him because they've got a sword. So, I know we have this fantasy of the unarmed man against the armed man being victorious, but the simple fact of it is, guys, historically, those with weapons win. Nuclear weapons win against non-nuclear missiles. Missiles win against those who've got machine guns. Machine guns work against those who've got single shotguns. Single shotguns work against those who've got arrows. Arrows work against those who've got spears. Spears work against those who've got swords. Swords work against those who've got daggers. Daggers work against unarmed combat. It is that simple. There's only one situation where you can draw a dagger before you can draw a gun and stab someone. You've got to be within a certain amount of feet, and you've got to be, ready to kill. So the simple thing is if somebody's got a sword, there is no point in doing iron body martial arts. So I'll leave it there, guys. What do you think? Thanks to Richmond Dojo here. This is Bob Aldis's dojo. I'll put the image again up here. So let me know what you think, and I hope you've enjoyed Nick's training. He sends me this footage so I can use it as background stuff. We've been researching some of the old Chinese katas and everything, so do enjoy, and don't forget to get yourself a copy of Zen and the Samurai Sword.